In this example, I want to demonstrate how to create a wire bridge for classroom testing, and we're going to be limited to 3 different diameters of wire: a 1/8 inch diameter wire, 3/32 diameter wire, and a 1/16 diameter. We're going to make the width of the bridge or the length as 17.75. I'll make the depth 2.5 and the height 2.5, and that's the inside dimensions of the wire bridge. So let's look at how to set this up. The first thing that I'm going to do is create some global variables to define our dimensions. So I'll go to Tools and I'll select Equations, and then we will enter some global variables. Now later on we can see how to do this in the Weldments for generating a frame. These aren't standard sizes of structural members, so we would have to add these profiles to the frame generator, which would be in the Weldments, which would be a little bit of work, so I'm going to hold off on that till another lecture. And so I'm going to create the first size as 1/8 RG60, and we'll set that size as 1 divided by 8, and then I'll create a second size of 3/32. I'll give it a name first, and these will all be RG60, 3/32, and the 1/16. I'll then create some variables for the dimensions on my bridge, and so I'm going to do the width, call this width or length 17.75, and I accidentally exited out of there, so let's go back to Equations. The depth 2.5 and the height. I'll say OK to select those global variables. I'm then going to go to the right side view, and I'll start a new sketch on the right plane. I'll do a center point rectangle at the origin. I'm going to dimension the width of this rectangle, and I'll do that equal to the global variable depth, and I'll dimension the height equal to the global variable height. Alright, I'm going to finish this sketch. I'll save my file, and I'm going to do a new sketch then on the right side plane. I will offset the sketch 1, and I'm going to change this dimension here. Let's make this dimension equal to the global variable 1/8 of an inch, and let's actually do that as, or half of that, so I'll do divided by 2, and we'll see why I'm putting this dimension in here in a minute. Okay. So I'll finish this sketch. I'm going to go back to my first sketch, and I'll highlight that sketch, and I'm going to go to the Surfaces tab. And if you don't see your Surfaces tab, right click on any of these gray tabs and then check mark Surfaces. So I want to do some construction geometry here that I can use for visual purposes, and I'm going to call this a keep out box. So I want to keep outside of the box that we're going to extrude. So I'll say extrude surface. I'll select that surface there, the lines, and I'm going to go then mid plane, and I'll attempt to do equal to and global variable the width 17.75, and make sure you hit the green check mark here to accept that, so that it puts it in as a global variable. And so we see that box, so I want to keep out of that box for our bridge. That's the area where we travel through the bridge within that box, and I like to give that a color to represent keep out. So I'm going to drag this over a little bit and click on this arrow to expand this, and I'll go to this surface body, and I'm going to set the color of that surface body, the appearance. So I want to keep out of that area, so I'm going to select that as a red area, and I'm going to make that transparent so that we can see through that box. I will then drag the roll-up bar down so sketch 2 is visible. I'll select sketch 2, and I'll do extrude surface again, and I'm going to go mid-plane, and I want that to be equal to the global variable width. Accept that. Make sure that it shows the globe here so that we know that it's a global variable. And I'm going to change that surface to a yellow, and we'll see why I'm doing yellow. So that's a caution. Anything I create on that construction geometry, let's use caution, make sure that it doesn't interfere, go into the red area. Show yellow for caution, and then I'll set that as transparent. So I won't need this red surface for a little while, so I'll just click here to toggle off the red surface. I've done a few things right. I'll save it, and then I'm going to start a new sketch on this face. Before I do that, later on we're going to need an axis to go around going through the center of the part. So let's drag the roll-up bar up here, and then we will create an axis. Now we didn't really have to do that technically, but I'm going to do an axis at the intersection of the front plane and the top plane. And so we're going to create that axis in the center of the bridge. Alright, so right now I have the visibility of that axis turned off. We'll turn it back on later. Alright, now I will do a sketch on this face. So I created this geometry as reference geometry that we can use for the purposes of creating sketches and also to keep track of where we're at. So I'm going to do a new sketch on that face, and we'll go around to the front view, and I will draw a line from the midpoint of this top line to the midpoint of the bottom edge, and then I'm going to do a pattern of this line. I'll select linear sketch pattern. I'm going to select this as the line that I want to pattern, and if I try to put in a global variable right now, it doesn't give me the option for the global variable. So for now I'll just put in a distance of 2, and I'm going to say I want 4 copies, and so I'm going to end up with, I want 1, 2, 3 divisions. I need to put a line on the end of that division. We'll spread this out in a minute. So I'll go ahead and accept the pattern, and then I'm going to change the dimension. So I'll change the dimension and I'll make it equal to, and I want the global variable, the wire diameter, the 3/32, and I'm going to come back and click again, and I'll go global variable again, and I'll get the width. And so I want the width divided by, I need 3 copies on this side plus only half of it, so width divided by 6, and I like to put these in parentheses so that I make sure that I get the operations carried out in the order that I expected. So I'm going to put this one in parentheses as well, and I need to divide this one by 6 as well. Okay, now after you put in the formula, make sure you hit this green check mark so that it doesn't just change that to the number, the result of the equation, but we keep this equation. So I'll click on that, and so we see the summation symbol here that's put in as an equation. So we see then now we have 1, 2, 3 divisions, and I intentionally left a small space between here and here because we're going to put a wire going along that last line, and I don't want the wire extending past the end of our box. I'll finish the sketch, and then I'm going to start a new sketch. So I'll right click on this face, I'll do a new sketch, and this time I'm going to draw a line from this point down to this point, up to this point, and back down. And be careful you get this point, not this one out here, get this point right here. Alright, so that sketch is finished. I'll complete it, and then I'll do another sketch on this face, and I'll draw lines going the other direction. So I'll draw a line from here up to here, back down to here, and back up to here. I'll finish that sketch. I'll then drag the roll-up bar up to temporarily hide these 3 sketches, and then I want to build a wire going along this edge and a wire going along this edge. To do that, I'll go to the features tool. So we left the surfaces, we went to features, and I will do swept boss base. I'm going to use a circular profile, and for the edge that I want to follow is this edge, and for the diameter I'll select equal, the global variable, and I'm going to do that one as 1/8. And you may need to make sure that you right click and turn on the selection manager, and I'm going to pin this so that I have this available. I'll do swept boss base again, select circular profile, and sometimes I've had some issues with selecting an edge where I may need to toggle back between a open loop and a closed loop. So I want this to be an open loop selection, and I'll select this edge, and see it's not selecting it. So I'll go to open loop and try to select an open loop, and I don't actually want that loop, so I'll hit the X to cancel that, and then I can select this edge. It's kind of finicky. I don't know exactly why it's happening like that, but it is what it is. Then I'll do equal to the global variable 1/8, and I have to make a decision whether I want to merge this together or not. Now right now it's a disjointed body, so it doesn't matter whether we have it on merge or not. It's not going to merge that, so I'll go ahead and accept this. I will drag my roll-up bar down to the next sketch, and again I'm going to do a swept boss base, put it on circular profile. I will select this line, and I need it to be on a open loop. I will set my size equal to the global variable 1/8 inch, and now I need to make a decision whether I want to join that together into merge results or not, or whether I want that as a separate solid body. I'm going to go ahead and leave it on merge result, but depending on how you want to set up a cut list, you may not want that merged. So I'll go ahead and accept that. I need to make that sketch visible again, so I'll expand that feature. I'll toggle that sketch visibility back on. I'll do swept boss base again, circular profile. I have it on open loop selection. I'll select this line and I'll do equal to the global variable 1/8. It's important here to click this check mark so that it doesn't just put the number in here, but it puts it in as a global variable. And I want to go back and check the previous one. I'm going to go ahead and leave this one on merge result, but you may not want to merge it. And let's go back and check the previous sweep. So I'm going to edit feature on this one and see, I see that I didn't hit the check mark for the global variable. So I will select equal again, global variable 1/8 of an inch, and make sure you hit this check mark. And I'll need to go back through and check each one of these sweeps. So I'll edit this feature. That one I have. I'll select the first one, and this one I have in as a global variable. So make sure you get those as the global variable. I'll do sweep again. Circular profile. I will select this edge as an open profile and equal to global variable 1/8 inch. Make sure you hit this check mark. It shows that as a global variable. And one more on this end. So I'll do swept boss base again. Circular profile. Now be careful on this one. Make sure you get this line, not this edge of the box. I'll get that sketch line. I'll do equal to the global variable 1/8 of an inch. Accept that as a global variable, and I'll select OK. All of these were supposed to be 3/32, so I'll have to go back through and check all of those. I noticed as soon as I put it on there that I had not done it to the size I intended, so I'll edit this feature. We'll say that I did that to show how easy it is to change these global variables. I'll backspace and delete the previous global variable. I'll change this to 3/32, green check mark, and so I made that wire a thinner wire than the wire that we have on the corner, and I need to check number 5, and I want that to be the global variable 3/32. I'll check number 4 and number 3, and I didn't get that last one, so I need to do that number 3. Right, so now I have all of these vertical wires as a narrower, and the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to end up mirroring these 3 across the other side. Sometimes it works better to do as individual bodies so that you can select bodies rather than features. So I allowed it to merge this together into one solid body, but I may want all of these as separate bodies to make the mirror body easier to do. I'll then drag the roll-up bar down to reveal sketch number 4, and I will do a swept boss base, circular profile. I'll select this sketch and I'll do equal to, I'm going to set that as the smallest wire diameter, the 1/16. Make sure to hit the green check mark so that we have that as a global variable, and I'll drag the end of part marker or the roll-up bar down to the last sketch. I'll do swept boss base again, circular profile. I'll select this sketch and I'll do equal to the global variable 1/16. Alright, now that I have swept this section, I'm going to mirror these to the other side. So I'll do mirror, and for the mirror plane I will select the right side plane, and then for the features to mirror I want to mirror this feature, this one, and this one. I'll select OK to that, and then I will do a circular pattern. So that's what I created this axis for, so I can do a circular pattern of these. So I'll do a circular pattern. I'm going to select the axis, and I will then do 4 copies. I can turn on the visibility of my keep out surface and make sure that I didn't violate that keep out area. I'll turn off the visibility of the caution or the construction surface, and so if I look directly down the center, I want to make sure that I have not violated that area. And actually I see that I could have come in closer to this, and so let's take a look at that dimensions for the second sketch. So I'll come in here and I'll right click, and I'm going to show this sketch, and I also want to show the feature dimensions. So I'll go to up to annotations and I'll say show feature dimensions, and this was the dimension of interest. And if I double click on that dimension, I have that offset distance as 1/8 divided by 2. We can see that we could actually do that as the radius from here to here up to this corner. So from this corner up here to this corner. So let's edit sketch number 2, and I'm going to remove this offset distance, and instead I will draw a circle here to represent my wire, my 1/8 of an inch wire diameter. I'll dimension that as equal to the 1/8 inch. Then I'll make this circle coincident to this point right here. So I'll select that circle, I'll select that point, make that coincident. I'm going to change this to construction. Now when I did that, these other lines became unconstrained, so I want to make those all equal to each other. I'll select these 4 lines and I'll make them equal, and then I want to make this line and this line vertical, and I'll make this line and this line horizontal. Right, then I want this distance to be the same. I'll select this line and I'll select the origin and I'll do coincident, and now it all turns black. It's all fully defined. I examine this. I need to account for the fact that these wires are smaller diameter than this wire, and so let's edit that sketch 2 again. I can see that I have a little bit of interference here with my keep out area where these wires are interfering with the red box, and we can't make parts perfect in the real world. We could do a calculation to see what that distance is between this point and put in an exact distance, but I'm just going to add a tolerance factor to this. So I'm going to just add, say, 0.005. Let's do 0.01, and I'll select update, and so now I've got a little bit of clearance between the red keep out area and my wire bridge. I'll turn off the visibility of the surface body, turn off the visibility of the dimensions, and I also need to make sure that I have these two. I'm going to mirror these two bodies to the other side, and so I'll select mirror. And actually though, because we did all of this as combined, we can't just select that as bodies, so we'll have to do that as features, but I'll do it mirrored across the front plane, and I'll select this feature and I will select this feature. I'll select OK, and then I need to make sure that everything is combined together, that I have one solid body to complete my bridge. Turn off the visibility of any sketches that I still have remaining visible. If you'd like to color your bridge to some paint color, you can select the appearance and select a color to paint your bridge. That completes our bridge. Now we run into one little problem in the materials that we're given to start this with. We've exceeded the amount of material that we're given in the start of the problem. In my original demonstration, we ended up using more material than what was allowed for the problem. And so we're given 2 36-inch rods of 1/8 inch in diameter and 2 3/32 inch rods of 36 inches long, and then 4 of the 1/16 inch rods 36 inches long. So in order to stay within the material limits of the problem that we're given, I changed the design a bit, and let me show you how I worked out this new design. I'm going to edit sketch number 3, and I wanted to put a length along here. We know that that distance is 17.75. I then put a reference dimension, so I then put a line coming up at an angle and a line coming up at an angle, and I have a gap in between here. I want this to be the total length of this line, and this line to be close to 36 inches. So I put in as a formula, did equal to this dimension plus 2 times this dimension, and then experimented with changing this dimension until I came close to a total length of 36 inches from here up to here and down to here. In a similar way, determined all the other appropriate lengths that I could have in order to stay within the limits of the material that we are given. Notice in the new design we must also honor the keep out area. So if I turn on the visibility of the first surface, we need to honor the rule that we stay out of this keep out box. And so with this new design, we can't have any crossover members coming across here, here, and here. That would close the 2.5 by 2.5 inch opening that we need to go through our bridge. So make sure that you verify everything that you do.